Hi, my name is Randy Blazak. I'm a professor of sociology at Portland State University in Portland, Oregon, and I have been researching hate groups and hate crimes for over 20 years, and a question I hear all the time is, isn't every crime a hate crime? And this is one of the issues that we're going to be wrestling with in this article in the Sociology Compass. I'm actually standing in the scene of a very famous murder in Portland, Oregon, on this sidewalk on November 12th, 1988. A young man named Mulugeta Sarah was brutally beaten by three racist skinheads. Sarah was an Ethiopian immigrant. He was working out at the airport and taking classes at Portland State University. And he was coming home one night from work with his cousin, and there was a group that lived just around the corner called Eastside White Pride. They were a group of white supremacist skinheads who had been very active in the city. And Sarah lived in this apartment right here. And the street is very narrow, and so Sarah and his cousin were in a car, the skinheads were in another car, and they were kind of blocking each other. Words were exchanged, and the skinheads got out of their car and pulled Sarah out of his car onto the sidewalk. The leader of the skinhead group was a guy who went by the street name of Ken Death. His name was Ken Miski. He went back to the car, got a baseball bat out, and started beating Sarah in the head. In fact, he was hitting him so hard, the witnesses said it looked like he was chopping wood. Then two other skinheads got out of the car and began to kick Sarah into unconsciousness, and then they fled the scene. Sarah was picked up by an ambulance and died the next day in a Portland hospital. This case had a huge impact on the city and sent ripples, especially through the minority community, ripples of fear. And it was more than just a murder. So let me step back a second and ask you a question. Why do we look at something like the 9/11 attacks in 2001 as a terrorist attack? Why not just look at them as 3,000 murders, for example? Well, that would seem crazy. Of course it was a crime against a much larger group of people, against American citizens. The terrorists didn't even know the people who were the victims in the 9/11 attacks, so of course it's a much greater crime. Well, hate crimes work the same way. The skinheads that killed Sarah on the sidewalk didn't know him, they didn't have anything against him. It's what he represented and the message that they wanted to send to a larger community. So skinheads committing acts like this are committing acts of terrorism. Hate crimes are a form of terrorism. And in our society, through our court system, through our legislative process, we've decided that hate crimes have a much larger impact on society and therefore should be raised to a much higher level of punishment. We've done this through the local courts all the way to the Supreme Court to look at the constitutionality of hate crime laws. And so what we're going to be looking at in this article that you're going to be reading is the process by which we find a law that recognizes the terrorist impact of a hate crime, even as something as small as something that would happen on a corner like this, but also respects the First Amendment rights of free speech and assembly. And these issues are not always cut and dry. Sometimes they're very complicated, and we continue into the 2010s to work out what hate crimes actually mean. So I hope you enjoy reading this article and you look at sort of the process by which we define what is and isn't a hate crime and why those hate crime laws are important.